Have you ever really despised a main character, but yet still managed to enjoy the book? Is that even possible? Today we're going to talk about the book Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. There's a lot going on in this book, and there is a lot to unpack. So, the basic premise is there is this woman, her name is Natalie Heller Mills. She's a trad wife, and she's like an influencer and has a big, like, homestead, beautiful farm, and beautiful children and this, that, and the other. She was raised to be a good Christian woman, so she really has some interesting ideas of what she believes that means. And a lot of what she seems to think that means is presenting an image of what people think you should be when behind the scenes she's a giant liar. She's emotionally abusive to her kids and her husband. She gives the image like that her and her husband and the kids it's just them taking care of the farm and doing all this stuff when they have like 20 part-time workers who are off in the fields, and she has 5 kids. She's pregnant with the 6th. She has 2 nannies. They're never on camera. Surprise, surprise. You get into her backstory, the family she came from. She has another sister. Her sister has like 5 kids too, and her sister is married to a alcoholic man-child who she's very unhappy with. So you get to like where she was when she was on the rise up and up, having her yesteryear farm and making bread and having her kids be all cute and this, that, and the other. As the kids get older, the oldest, who is Clementine, eventually she's like, stop filming me. Like, I don't want to be on camera. The mom just kind of like is like, oh, la-di-da-di-da, like, and just kind of ignored the wants of her family and her kids. And like the younger ones, they don't really know better. So it is kind of one of those things. And I imagine like some of this is based loosely on true-ish stories that we hear about YouTubers of yesteryear and whatnot. But this book was quite the tome and tale, and it's interesting because like I was reading this on the side and I hadn't planned to talk about it at all. Like this was just going to be a book that I was very curious because it's like in the social zeitgeist right now. It seems like it's a very popular book, and I was like, I'm going to check it out of like morbid curiosity. And I was really surprised by how captivating the story actually was and how effed up like the whole idea of this woman and her Christianity, like divorce is not a thing, gotta make everything seem like everything's fine. When she was growing up too, she didn't seem like she even wanted that life. She didn't seem like she wanted to be a trad wife. Like she went to college. When she got to college, it wasn't all that she thought it would be. She ended up meeting her husband there, this guy Caleb. His parents and family were very rich. His dad is a politician and is running for office, actually thinking about doing a presidential run. It's obvious they seem very Republican, and they're talking about like civil war and family values and nuclear family and this, that, and the other. And so, it's kind of that side of the political spectrum. So you get into some of that, how you'll see how like as the main character, Natalie, as her influence grows and her channel grows, like with Instagram and branching out into other social media stuff, how like the dad, her in-law, like wants her to like talk him up, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that politically on the channel and this, that, and the other. She doesn't love her husband. He can't even stay erect when they try to have relations, so she uses a turkey baster for like every one of her pregnancies, and then her husband ended up cheating on her, and like she ignores like everything and they still stay together. Everything about her, she's very horrible. She's very mean. She is a liar. She is, all the things she does are very un-Christian of her, but she gives off the appearance, this false life that isn't even real, because she has nannies and workers on the farm. And when they first got to the farm, they didn't have all that. But as she started to grow, one of the reasons that she started to grow is that like her husband, who she would just let do his thing off in the barn, where he was like constantly like on the computer in these different forums, basically like getting into QAnon in the manosphere, saying all this crazy dumb stuff about chemtrails and the rats in New York and this, that, and the other. And she never corrected him or tried to have a rational conversation. She just kind of like rolled her eyes and let him get into all that conspiracy crap. Then he would talk to the different people on the forums and stuff. And then at some point, one of like the talking heads, podcaster, whatever, mentioned her channel. And this manosphere dude had like millions of followers, subscribers, and so that kind of like catapulted her career, and she got like thousands of followers, and it started to grow from there. And then as that happened, once she had her fourth kid is when they got their first nanny, and then when she had her fifth kid, she got the second nanny. Before they got workers on the farm, Caleb was supposed to like take care of all the stuff, but like their dairy cow that they named the same thing every time because they would just die because these people didn't know how to take care of their animals. Their animals were always dying continuously. They were abusive to their animals because they didn't really learn how to take care of them. And then they're saying their farm's all organic, but they use pesticides on it. It's so effed up. It's like this horrible train wreck. And that's why it was so entertaining. This woman is like this awful person who pretends that she is Christian, and she's the most furthest thing from. Everything that she said and projected was like lies, and she was horrible and mean and vindictive, and she was so focused and arrogant about how she was winning against whoever she thought she was doing better than, getting mad at the angry women who don't like her life and this, that, and the other. But her life was a lie. It was all like a projected image. And so you read her downfall. So she had this whole like influencer business thing going on. You know, she's selling products. She's pretending her farm stuff is organic, even though it's not. You know, a house of cards eventually will fall, which is what she had built on. And then, but one day she wakes up, and it seems as if she's traveled back into the past in the 1800s. And now she's like actually living on a actual homestead with no electricity, no running water. Like you gotta do your laundry in one of those buckets and use an outhouse and live off the land, grow all the stuff that you eat. And it seems like outside of the property is bad. Who knows what's out there? Yeah. So she wakes up to this and she freaks out, and she's like, these kids that she doesn't recognize, none of them are her kids. They seem to be her kids because they call her mama. You know, there's this girl, Maeve, and then Mary, and then there's her other kids. Caleb looks like Caleb, but he's like old. And so she's like, what in the F is happening? And you get like backstory, and you kind of bounce back and forth in the timeline as you see what happens as her career crumbles and what goes on, and maybe what goes on in her mind. And then you also get like what happened with her mother and her sister. She meets up with her mom and her sister at some point, and her sister's like, yeah, I want a divorce from my husband. And she's like, you can't do that. Do. Good Christian woman. And she's like, I'm gonna get a divorce. And she's like, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna be able to get a job. You don't have any job experience, this, that, and the other. And she's like, I'm just gonna move in with mom. And yeah, and her mom had started going to a new church where they're very progressive and like not in these stupid conservative ideas of how and what things should be. You know, being hateful Christians, they actually seem like they're trying to live the tenets of an actual, like, be good people and good humans. And her mom's like, why do you always have to be so mean? Because they grew up with her and the dad separated, and the mother always said like the dad was like dead even though he wasn't. They had divorced. And so the girls really, they just figured, whatever, this is what mom says, because, you know, it's not okay to be an unmarried woman when you're a Christian person. Eventually, way later in life, telling her that, yeah, I cheated on your father and I left him and I was so much happier when I finally left. But, you know, you can't give that up for all purposes and appearances. And that's sad because, you know, I'm sure a lot of part of that is how this main character had all these ideas that this is what she had to do or was supposed to do. And then she gets locked into this marriage because she signs a prenup like an idiot because, well, Caleb, her husband, comes from a family of a lot of money. In order to get this whole farm, she kind of like made a deal with his dad and like, but everything's in Caleb's name. So she has nothing if she divorces him. So she never leaves him. And like, even early on, she kind of realizes she doesn't even like her husband. She thinks he's stupid, doesn't really treat him like a human. But you watch this downfall of everything that happens, and it's sad and it's effed up, and it's also like, you're like, oh, you did deserve this. You did this and you were a terrible person. But thank God, like, some of your kids turn out okay. The ending of it, I won't get too into the ending. Like, it's a really good ending. It was a really great story. I despised the main character. Freaking horrible. But the story, holy crap, it was really good. Like I said, I wasn't going to even talk about this book. It's not my normal-ish genre. I don't tend to usually get into these books. Every once in a while I will, you know, and this is worth the read. It's captivating. It's a page turner. It's messed up. There's human elements to it. There's a lot going on. Really enjoyable. I would read more from this author. I know that, like, this has been a very popular book. I don't like to watch videos about specific books I'm gonna read and do a review of until after I've recorded because, I don't wanna be influenced with having, like, certain opinions and stuff. So I don't really know what people are saying yet. I just know it's popular and a lot of people have been reading it. So I will probably watch and see what people think of this afterwards. So that was a big surprise. And if any of that sounds good, I would say definitely check it out. It is a train wreck of a book. Hard to look away. Also, if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.